Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good morning. Thank you, the host, CDAE, for inviting me as a speaker today for another webinar series by CDAE entitled Design Your Classroom using Understanding by Design, or UbD. So, have you all had your breakfast? Okay, dah makan pagi ni?
Yes, we
Yeah,
have.
sudah. Very good. Yeah. And if I look at the number of participants, there are 59 who joined our webinar today. So thank you so much for joining the webinar hosted by CDAE. Yeah, it's been a while since I've not been doing a seminar regarding teaching and learning. Yeah, before this more on e-learning, but today I'm going to try out new knowledge that I have learned using tabung latihan by CDAE, yeah, which called Understanding by Design. Right, so are you all ready? Ready today? Okay, allow me to share my content. Okay, can you see my screen? Where's the chat box? Okay. Right. Let me put it in. Okay. So today, we're going to listen to one kind of instructional plan called Understanding by Design. Yeah. The time given for me for conducting this workshop is 2 hours, starting from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. And I would like to say to all of you that actually, for understanding what is understanding by design, it will take us about 1 to 2 days of a workshop, actually. Yeah, it requires a hands-on workshop where we have to do some hands-on activity. So that's what I did when I went for this workshop last year. But because this is something new, I guess, which I have been told by Prof. Karim, it's something new that we need to introduce to the lecturers or the educators of USM. So I talked to CDAE and I said maybe this is just an introduction about what is understanding by design so that the participants will get an idea, yeah? Just an idea on what is actually understanding by design using backward design. And perhaps later on, we can arrange a face-to-face, hands-on workshop, maybe 1 day, full day hands-on workshop where I'm going to explain in details and how we can do a hands-on activity. So that is my plan with CDAE. So today, just a reminder that I'm not going to go into details on explaining understanding by design, but I will try my best to explain to you surface about understanding by design. Okay, so that is just a reminder or just extra information that I would tell you that since I only have 2 hours, so it's going to be a very surface explanations on what is design your classroom using understanding by design. So I am Nur Asniza Ishaq. I'm from School of Educational Studies. I'm sure some of you have known me before because I have conducted some workshop with CDAE on teaching and learning and also in e-learning as well. So put up your hand who have participate my workshop before with CDAE. Any one of you? Or this is the first time you joining my workshop with CDAE? Okay. So I can see hands rising. Okay. Thank you. So for those who are not familiar with me, yeah, I am a Dr. Ija. You can call me Ija. I am a senior lecturer in School of Educational Studies in USM. I've been working as an educator for 19 years. 19 years is not in USM. I was teaching in Penang Matriculation College for 15 years. And then I decided to migrate to USM. So I've been teaching in USM for 4 years. So altogether, I had a 19 years of teaching experience. So my area of specializations and interests are science education, STEM educations, biology educations, and I did my PhD in curriculum instruction, particularly in pedagogy. So that is why I'm very interested in sharing my knowledge on the curriculum and also the instructions that we can use while teaching, yeah. And then environmental education and also education for sustainable development. So this is my area of specialization. So today I'm just going to explain my knowledge, my little knowledge, not saying that I know everything, but at least what I have, I can share with all of you regarding new, well, it's not a new instructional plan, but it's rather new maybe to the educators of USM. So it was rather new. Well, I heard about it before, but when Prof. Karim approached me so that I can further enhance my knowledge on understanding by design last year, I said, why not? So maybe this is an opportunity for me to at least share whatever knowledge that I gain to the lecturers of USM, inshallah. Yeah. So this would be the contents of our workshop today. Yeah, I divided into, sorry, not 3, but 4. Yeah, I divided into 4. First one would be introduction to UbD. UbD is a short form for understanding by design. Yeah. And the underlying principles of UbD is using a backward design. So I'm going to explain or introduce what is understanding by design, and the principle or the instructional design they use under UbD would be backward design. And then writing effective learning objective. The third would be choosing right assessments for students. And finally, instructional strategies and learning activities. Please make sure that today, yeah, I mean, you should know that today coming to this workshop is for you to know, to understand, and perhaps to implement it in the future about how to plan your curriculum or to plan your course or to plan your unit. Yeah, so today the workshop is mainly about planning, right? Designing, okay? So the synopsis, yeah, this workshop is intended for educators who are interested in designing more effective curricula and assessment to achieve better students' understanding. So the keywords here is understanding. That is the big keywords for today's workshop. And understanding by design is a way of thinking more purposefully and carefully about the nature of any design that emphasizes on understanding. Yeah. So it's all about understanding. Who understand? Teacher or the students? So of course, in the classroom, it is referring to the students. Yeah. So I would like to give you a quick survey. I would like to all of you to fill in. Yeah. This quick survey. Maybe I can just put it in the chat box. Just 3 questions so that I know a background of my participants today. So please click to that link that I put at the chat box, and it will direct you to this 3 questions of survey, planning your lessons. Yeah, can you open it? All of you, are you able to open it? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Anwar. Right, there are 3 questions. Do you plan your lessons before teaching? If yes, what type of instructional plan do you use? And would you want a hands-on workshop face-to-face on developing an instructional plan using backward design in the future? Because like I said, today we're just going to have a surface one, just an introductions of the components of understanding by design using backward design. So perhaps in the future, would you want a face-to-face workshop? Yeah. So I'm getting response from all of you. Dr. Nur Azia, can you hear me? Can all of you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Boleh.
Boleh. So Dr. Nazia, are you having problem? All right. Thank you for the response. Okay, 17 have respond. 19. Right. I'm still waiting for more responses from the participants. Okay, maybe I give another 1 more minute. All right. So, right, let's look at the response from the participants who have answered this quick survey. The first one, do you plan your lessons before teaching? Out of 39 respondents, 40 respondents, 75% said yes. Yeah, which is 30. 30 respondents said, oh, that is quite a lot of numbers lah. I would say congratulations to all of you for planning your lessons before teaching. And of course, we are following the MQA using the OBE curriculum. We have to develop our own rancangan pengajaran kan, the instructional plan that we put in our course file. So that's why it's important in the curriculum where we have planning the lessons. Yeah. So 74.4 said that they plan it. Only 4.7% said no. Okay, and 20.9% said sometimes. But you must remember, when it comes to planning a lessons, there are different kind of lesson plans that you may do. First is a lesson plan for the whole program. Lessons for the whole programs. You have your own lesson, instructional plan for the whole program. And then we break down into smaller part, which is the instructional plan for the whole course. The one that we have in our course file is instructional plan for the whole course. But do you have an instructional plan for each of the unit in your course, each topic? Yeah, that is sometimes that we don't do. I would say every one of us who are teaching a course in USM would have an instructional plan for our course. That one is definitely because it has to be put in the course file for the MQA. But do we plan an instructional plan for each of the unit in our lessons? Yeah, that is something that you need to think and refresh back again. Do you do that or not? Yeah. Right. If yes, what type of instructional plan do you use? Because there are many types of instructional plan. Maybe because you are not under educations, you don't know specifically the name of the instructional plan. Well, most common instructional plan we use would be 5E instructional plan, you have EDI instructional plan, so on and so forth. But basically in instructional plan, what you do is you have the titles, you have the objective, you plan the teaching strategy and the teaching activity, and finally you come with an assessment. How you assess your students, you do some assessment. That is a basic step of instructional plan that commonly be used by many of educators. But actually, there are more specific steps for instructional plan that will help you to properly plan your lessons. Yeah, which which one of it is understanding by design. So if yes, what types of instructional plan do you use? You use BPK. Yeah, that plan is for the whole course, right? And then don't know specifically interactivity, lecture topic. You don't know any specific. Yeah, blended. So all I can say here is that you don't really plan step by step for the instructional plan. Yeah. You just do it, you plan it, but it's not well structured. I'm sorry to say that, but based on your response, yeah, conclusion that I can make is that many lecturers plan the teaching, but you don't know the step by step of doing the lesson plan. Yeah, okay, it is not structured. So would you want a hands-on workshop face-to-face on developing an instructional plan using backward design in the future? So 91.5% or 43 out of 47 said you want a face-to-face. So CDAE, I will talk to all of you about conducting face-to-face hands-on workshop on understanding by design. So let us, the participant today, get visions of what is actually understanding by design first. Okay, so thank you so much for answering the quick survey. So now I know the background of my participants. Yeah, you do instructional plan, but the plan is not systematic or maybe not well structured. Yeah, you just itu pun saya tak tanya. I didn't ask whether you written your plan or it's all in here. Yeah, okay. Tak tanya lagi tu. Actually, there are so many things that I can ask about planning a lesson plan. All right. Some people say lesson plan. Some people say instructional plan. Some people say instructional guide. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Yeah. Before we teach, we need to have a plan. Okay. Let's go back to my slide. So, like I said, my webinar today will be divided into 4 sections. Yeah, let's look at the first section, which is introduction to backward design. Actually, it's introduction of UbD and backward design. Yeah. So in this section, participants will review the 3 steps of backward design and take a closer look at the importance of proper planning of lesson activities. So this is what I think missing among lecturers in USM. They do planning. Yeah, they do plan the lesson activities, but maybe it's not the proper one. Yeah. So hopefully by the end of the workshop today, you are able to properly plan your lessons, activities, or your teaching. Yeah. So this session will also introduce a brief overview of how to write an appropriate learning objective and how to plan an appropriate assessment. Yeah. Okay. Ideas to consider for these lessons. Yeah. What you will get after this lesson or the first section. Yeah. Backward design is an effective planning method that begins by setting student learning objective, then planning for assessment, and then choosing learning strategies and activities. Okay, so after this, you should know what is backward designs, what are the components of backward design, which consists of 3 parts. Yeah. Setting the student learning objective, planning for assessment, and then choosing learning strategies and activities. So learning strategies and activities should be clearly and intentionally aligned with the objective and assessment already planned. So planning is a critical component in student success, right? Okay, so if you look at the diagrams on the right-hand side of the slide, you see the 3 stages of backward design or understanding by design. Yeah, identify desired result, determine acceptable evidence, and plan learning experiences and instruction. Okay, you may wonder, yeah, what is actually understanding by design and what is actually backward design? What is backward of this backward design? Yeah, what is understanding of this understanding design? So the first section's objective is I will explain to you what is understanding by design and backward design and differentiate between traditional planning and planning using backward design. Yeah. And in this section also, I'm going to briefly explain the 3 stages of planning using backward design and what is involved in planning instruction and the importance of having a learning plan. So this is something missing while we're teaching, especially those who are not from education, those who are not knowing about would be pedagogy. Yeah, what is pedagogy or pedagogy? Yeah. For those who attended my workshop last year about the pedagogy and the productive pedagogy, you may have an idea what is in the pedagogy. So pedagogy is arts of teaching. Yeah, it's the arts of teaching where teachers will start with planning the lessons, implement it, and then doing assessment. So that is a basic principle of pedagogy. Yeah. Okay. Apa itu understanding by design? What is actually understanding by design? Who can tell me when you decided to join my workshop, what do you have in your mind about understanding by design? Maybe anyone can unmute and tell me? Did you Google first? Yeah, what is understanding by design, or you just want to know when you come to the workshop? Okay, anybody? Or maybe you can just chat, yeah, using the chat box. Ada? What do you have in mind about understanding by design?
Um,
What? Hmm.
how to design my teaching template or my planning template.
Okay, how to design your teaching. Yeah? Okay, is that Dr. Setiasha?
Yes, teaching planning, yeah.
Yeah, okay, designing a teaching planning. Okay, very good. Yeah, because you see the word design, right? So when we design, of course, it's about planning. But here I have the words understanding by design. Yeah. So UbD, understanding by design, was developed, or the pioneer or the pencipta lah, the creator of understanding by design were Wiggins and McTighe in year 2005. I mean, it's been quite a while since the overseas or the Western countries have been using understanding by design, but it's rather new in Asian country, where I spoke to my friends, lecturers in IPG. They are also under the training of using UbD. I spoke to my friends, lecturers in UUM. They are also into UbD. So I think that's why I need to explain to USM, fellow USM lecturers, about what is UbD. So Wiggin and McTighe in 2005 said that UbD is a curriculum planning framework. Yeah, because when it comes to instructional plan or designing, it involves the curriculum, and also it involves planning programs, planning a program. But in UbD, it is particularly about designing a curriculum. So when we say a curriculum, usually, of course, it involves in education. Yeah. So it's a curriculum planning framework where it focuses on helping students come to an understanding of important ideas, or sometimes called as big ideas, and transfer their learning to new situations. So that's why we have the words understanding by design, because this instructional design or instructional plan is merely focused on getting the students to understand. Well, of course, all lesson plan, all teaching is for the students to understand. But like I said, from the survey that I gave you, I can see that you do the instructional plan, but you don't do proper design. So in understanding by design, that proper is more focused on students' understanding of big ideas, and how the students transfer their understanding of what they have learned into new situations. It becomes a meaningful learning. So that is what we want in planning an instructional plan in or using understanding by design. So of course, the main focus of our teaching is the students, but what does the students understand and how they apply it in the new situations or in meaningful learning. Yeah. So it reflects current research on learning. When we do understanding by design, every time we need to analyze our previous lessons, so that it will help us, or it will guide us to create a new instructional plan for our future lessons. You analyze, yeah, and then you plan. You analyze and you plan. Okay. Emphasizes the concept of backward design with 3 stages. So Wiggins and McTighe, under understanding by design, using the principles of backward design. They use the concept of backward design, which emphasizes on the 3 stages. So now, if I ask you what is UbD, UbD is a planning for a curriculum which emphasizes on the student's understanding through meaningful learning, and it consists of 3 steps. So when I say 3 steps, it's become structured. The planning is structured. Yeah, called the backward design. Yeah, so that is what is UbD for your informations. So, like I said, UbD or understanding by designs focuses more on students' understanding. So, how do I give the meaning of understanding here? Yeah. So understanding is revealed when student autonomously, make sense of and transfer their learning through authentic performance. For example, we have 6 facets here: explain, interpret, apply, shift perspective, emphasize, empathize, and self-assess. Okay, so this, if you see this practices among students, you can say that the students are having good understanding. Yeah. So meaning that from the behavior or from the characteristic of students, they understand when they're making connections, they're seeing the big picture, they're grasping core concept, involve effective use of knowledge and skill. This is what we operationalize the definitions of understanding. Yeah. So teachers are coaches of understanding, which focus on ensuring learning and not just teaching. Right? So that's why in the field of educations, when we go into a classroom, what are you going to do in the classroom? I'm going to do a teaching and learning process. The teaching will not happen without the learning. The learning will not happen without the teaching. So it's complement each other. The teaching must come together with the learning. That's why we said teaching and learning process. You don't teach when you don't have any audience, right? No matter your audience is online or face-to-face, you teach when you have an audience. And the audience, they will learn if you have the teacher. You don't learn, sometimes, we learn from the books, from the textbook, but it will be more effective if you have a teacher in front of you who will explain in detail, explicitly, all the contents that you are trying to understand. It'll be different if you learn using, just read the textbook, read the lecture notes, rather than having the teacher in front of you, right? So teaching and learning is a principal technique for the understanding by design, the teaching. Yeah, so that's why teachers are coaches of understanding, which focus on ensuring learning and not just the teaching. We as a teacher, we should not focus more on teaching, but we focus more on the learning. We should know, we should plan properly. How does the students be able to understand or learn after or during the process of teaching? Okay, so that is our role as a teacher, or I'm using the word teacher here. Doesn't mean teacher just specifically point into a primary or secondary school teachers. Actually, teachers here is general terms for educators here. So when I use teachers, doesn't mean that it's referring to a secondary or primary schools. School teachers. Teachers are us. We are teachers. Yeah, most of the books they use the word teachers, which generalize to the whole educators. Whether you teach in the primary school, secondary school, or higher educations. Yeah. So they aim and check for successful meaning making and transfer by the learner. So this is what we do. Yeah, we aim and check. We aimed and then we check for successful meaning making and transfer by the learner. Right. So this would be the basic principle of pedagogy. If you look at the cycle, it starts with preparing contents, how content is presented or delivered to learner. Okay, this is through the teaching activity and the strategies. Connect with assets that are needed to present content. Pull together these assets to create cognitive psychology based on learning process. And finally, you evaluate. Yeah, evaluation of the learning process, whether it's working correctly. So basically, this is the principle of pedagogy. Yeah, when you want to go to a classroom, you plan. You plan for what is the objective? Okay, what will be the objective of my lesson today? Okay, what is the objective of my lesson today? And then how contents is presented to the learner, meaning that what will be the teaching strategy, what is the teaching activity that I'm going to use here, and finally, evaluation. So this will be the 3 principles of pedagogy. All right, preparing contents means you do the lesson plans, which consists of the objective, teaching activity, strategy, and then you do assessment. Yeah. Right. So what is backward design? Okay, clear about what is understanding by design? Yeah. We design a lessons for the students to understand and then transfer the knowledge or the big ideas into a meaningful learning. Right. Like I said, UbD, the concepts of UbD, Wiggins and McTighe use backward design. Yeah, so backward design is a process used in lesson planning where the focus is on the end result. It works backwards to outline the steps needed to reach the final result. So if I go back to the basic principle of pedagogy, preparing content, how content is presented or delivered to learner. It starts with thinking about the strategy, the activity that you wish to do in your classroom. It starts with that. Yeah. And then you have the evaluation at the end. But if you look at the backward design, that is why it's called backwards. It's backward from the traditional design of planning a lesson plan for the classroom. Yeah. We start with effective learning objective, right? I think this occur for both design, either traditional or the backward design. We start with the learning objective. We set up the goals, right? But then we don't straight away plan what will be the learning activities and strategies that we're going to use in our lessons. We don't do that. But instead, we think of the appropriate assessments that will help to achieve the learning objective or the learning outcomes of our lessons. So this is the backward design. Usually kita ada objective. When I have the objective, what is the teaching strategy? What will be the activity that I want to do in my lessons? After that, I do the assessments. But no in backward design. Once you have the objective, check what will be the appropriate assessments that parallel with the objective that you want your students to achieve. And after that, only then you plan the learning activities and the strategies. Yeah. So backward design, okay, understanding by design is planning for understanding. Yeah, Dr. Siti Aisyah. Okay, planning for understanding, and how we want the students to understand is by using the concept of backward design. Planning it using backward design. Yeah, backward design is under UbD. Yeah, it's under UbD. Right, so let's look at the comparison between traditional design versus backward design. Okay, so most of the traditional design, most of the teachers, when they want to go for teaching, they don't have the objective in their mind. Esok nak buat apa Esok nak mengajar guna apa? Tomorrow, what am I going to teach? Okay, I'm going to teach this. What are the strategy that I'm going to use? What are the activity that I'm going to do with my students? That's what we do. I'm going to use Kahoot. I'm going to use quizzes, right? So that is consider the learning activity first. So that is what we do. Most of us do is consider the learning activity first before we set up the objective. Yeah. So in traditional design, we consider the learning activity first. Focus is on teaching. Hit or miss the learning. Yeah. And it's linear. So this is traditional design. Not I'm saying it, but this is what Wiggins and McTighe said. And most of people in curriculum and instruction would say this is the traditional design. when you go or you want to do a teaching, we consider the learning activity first. Correct if I'm wrong. I mean, maybe all of you are not doing this, but I think most of us do this, including me sometimes. Yeah, I cannot bluff here. I do this sometimes. Yeah. I don't look at the objective. I have the title. What am I planning? What I'm going to do? What are the activity and the strategy that I'm going to focus on in teaching? But in backward design, what you need to consider is the learning goal first. You have the content. I mean, you have the title. Yeah, you have the contents. You are an expert in the contents. You are a teacher. But you should consider the learning objective. Learning is the goal, not teaching. Yeah. When you plan for learning, yeah, the teaching will come after that. So that is what in backward design, right? Which focus on student learning and encourage intentionality, and it is rounded. It's circular. It's not linear. Yeah. So this is what we need to shift now. Well, we can't shift right after this workshop, but at least we try. Yeah, at least we try. When we look at our instructional plan that we have in our course planner, you know that this week you're going to teach this topic. Stop thinking about the strategy that you're going to use, but think of what the objective that you want your students to learn. What are the objective? Yeah, learning goals, learning outcomes. People say learning goal, people say learning outcome, people say learning objective. It is actually the same. But um, in curriculum, in Malaysian curriculum for the secondary and primary schools, they don't use learning objective, but they use learning outcome. Yeah, learning outcome. But actually, it's the same thing. What is it that we want our students to learn by the end of our lessons? Yeah. Okay, so this is the difference, yeah, between traditional, backward. Traditional, more on teaching. What I'm going to teach? What am I going to teach? What are the strategy? What are the activities? But in backward design, the learning. What are the goals? What are the outcome? What I want the students to have by the end of my lessons. That is the mere focus of backward design. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, like I said, some of us, because actually understanding by design or backward design is something familiar with OBE, outcome-based education. That the one that we have been using, OBE is outcome. That's why most of us in USM, we are we are doing backward design without realizing it. Yeah, but what I'm trying to do today is that how we properly plan the design. Yeah, we know we have the objective and then we plan the teaching strategy, but we should have the assessment first before we do the strategy. That is in backward design. But this workshop is to explain to all of you the proper steps. Yeah, okay. So pause and consider. Consider this classroom scenario. It's Monday morning and the 7th grade science teacher, I'm using a science teacher. 7th grade science teacher had an unexpected family emergency come up over the weekend. Therefore, he was not able to work on his lesson plan and he had expected to. When the student come in for first period, he is scrambling, trying to remember where he left off on Friday because he did not do any analysis of the previous lessons. Yeah, they are in the middle of a unit on the parts of a cell. So out of desperation to buy sometimes, he tells the class to sketch what they know about parts of a cell in their notebooks because he could not remember what he had teach on Friday. So it's Monday, early in the morning, he do not know. He forgot it because he did not do any reflections. Reflections is another part of teaching strategy or teaching plan. He did not remember because no proper plan. Okay, my focus here is no proper plan. So what he told the students was, right? He tell the class to sketch what they know about parts of a cell because he thought that he explained about structure of the cell, yeah, in their notebooks. Several students immediately start complaining. We haven't even learned that yet, right? So how did you think he felt at the moment and most likely for the rest of the day? Making mistakes by asking students to do something that they have not learned because of not doing a proper planning, because of not doing a proper analysis of reflections of the previous lessons. Meaning that he's not prepared. You have a lesson plan sometimes, but you don't prepare. You don't even bother to look at it. Yeah? So this is what happened. Were the students engaged as soon as they walk in? How do you know? How would the lesson have been improved with more thorough planning? Right? So let's pause and consider and do the reflections. Most likely, this teacher will feel less confidence to that particular moment until the rest of the day, stressed out, flustered, unorganized, frustrated, like no one was listening. Because at the very beginning of the lessons, he did a mistakes. Yeah, he did a mistakes by not reflecting back what he had done last Friday and did not have a proper plan. Though this may be the feelings of that teacher at that particular time. Yeah. So the students were not engaged, of course. In fact, they probably realized the teacher was not prepared, which may have soon led to behavior issues. I think sometimes we do face this. When we are not planned enough for our lessons, we come to the class, yeah, we can see the reactions of the students. They are not happy. They are not engaged with our classrooms. Why does that happen? It's something that we need to reflect back. Did you do a proper planning? Yeah. This is some things that we need to improve in our lessons in the future. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm good. I'm not good. I'm also in the process of learning as well. That's why I go for training to know what will be the good, what is understanding by design, what is backward design. Even though I already have a PhD in pedagogy. Yeah, even though my PhD is in curriculum and instructions and particularly in pedagogy, I know what is planning, what is strategy, and what is assessment. But still, I go for a course so that, oh, maybe in the future, it will help me to do a proper planning. Yeah. So had he done sufficient planning, he would have felt more prepared and the students would know exactly what was expected of them. Okay. So now let's look at in details the stages of backward design. Stage 1, identify desired result, learning objective, which is different from the traditional teaching where we more focus on teaching, even though we have the planning, but sometimes when we go to the classroom, we start thinking about teaching, yeah, without looking at the objective, yeah. So identify desired results. So I'm going to explain, but not so detailed because I'm going to have another hands-on workshop, just a brief idea on how to prepare a good learning objective. I'm sure you do learning objective, but do you think you prepare a good learning objective? That is something that I'm trying to explain and maybe share how to prepare a good learning objective. As effective, I call it as writing an effective learning objective. Yeah. And then stage 2, determine evidence of student learning through assessment, which usually we put at the end of our lesson. This is what we do. Yeah, assessments come to the end, but actually in backward design, it comes in stage 2, second stage. In planning, yeah, not in implementing. Don't get confused. Today we are designing, not implementing. In curriculum, we have 3 types of curriculum. We are designing a curriculum, we implement the curriculum, and we do assessments of the curriculum. Yeah. So today is about designing a curriculum. Okay. Second stage, after you have identified the learning objective, you have to think of appropriate assessments that will align with the objective. And in stage 3, what are the activities and strategies that are aligned to the objective and also the assessment? Yeah. Right. An overview, just an overview. I will explain in details. Yeah. Writing an appropriate learning objective. This is the first step in backward design. where the learning objective should be student-centered learning objective. Yeah, I think all of you know what is student-centered. This is based on the 21st century learning skills. Yeah, where the activity must be focused on the students' learning instead of the teacher teaching. Teacher just become the facilitator, whereas the students is the ones who are doing most of the activity in the lessons. Yeah. So here is a quick review of how to achieve these steps, where in writing effective learning objective, there are 3 steps that you can follow. Consider the behavior, consider the conditions, and consider the criterion. This is an overview. I will explain in details. In behavior, what the learner will be able to do. Yeah. In condition, how the learner will perform the behavior. And in criterion, how well the learner must perform to demonstrate. Right? So in this workshop, it's just an overview. Later in the hands-on activity, I'll go into detail, giving you a sheet. We can write together, but not enough for today's. I'm so sorry. Yeah. For example, given a non-fiction article on dolphin, the student will be able to identify the main idea for 5 out of 7 paragraphs. I think some of us do not write a proper learning objective. Yeah. Some, yeah, maybe many of us do wrote a proper learning objective. And then the second steps in backward design is choosing an appropriate assessment. Yeah, after determining the objective, after you write the effective objective, we have to make sure that the objective is parallel or appropriate with the assessments. Yeah. So basically, there are 4 types of assessments. Okay, written here is 3, but actually I'm going to explain 4 types of assessments. Diagnostic test, diagnostic assessment or pre-assessment, formative assessment, summative assessments, and the third one is instructional strategies. Yeah, the third one is instructional strategies. Okay, objective, assessment, the strategy and the activity that we plan for the lessons. So instructional strategy are how the content is being taught. While there are countless strategies for teaching, most can be grouped into 5 main categories. Yeah, they are the 5 strategies we will focus on for this course, right? Actually, there are 5, but no, I'm not going to explain in details because 2 hours will be needed to explain one type of instructional strategies. Yeah, we have direct instruction, demonstration, cooperative learning, discovery or inquiry-based learning, and project-based learning. So maybe in the chat box, you can tell me which among these 5 are commonly being used by you in teaching and learning process in your classroom. Which one? Do you do direct instruction, demonstration, cooperative learning, discovery or inquiry-based learning, project-based learning? Which one? Because each and every one of it has its own set or it have its own purpose based on the learning objective. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Okay, Dr. Nur Azia said direct instructions, lecturing, tutorialing. Yeah, that is direct instructions. So right. Okay, so we are done with the introductions, a brief introduction on what is UbD, what is backward design, and what are the components of backward design. Now, we are going to look specifically, not in details, but maybe to get a rough idea on the 3, how to write a proper learning objective, effective learning objective, assessment, yeah, choosing appropriate assessments, and selecting appropriate teaching strategies and also activities. Yeah, so we're gonna do that. All right. Like I said, it's not that I know everything, but what I have, I want to share with all of you. So in these sections, participants will review the 3 steps of backward designs and take a closer look at the importance of proper planning of lessons activities. And this section will also include a brief overview of how to write an appropriate learning objective. Ya, kita nak tengok macam mana nak tulis learning objective yang betul. Okay, what are the appropriate or effective? Yeah, how to write effective learning objective. It's important, you know, to write a proper learning objective. Me, when I observe my students in dalam latihan mengajar, teaching practice, at school, yeah, PPIP, School of Educational Studies, the students will, student teachers, we call it student teachers, will go to the school and doing practical ataupun yalah teaching practice for 10 weeks there. The first thing that I would tell them is to write a good objective, learning outcomes, or in curriculum, KSSM, we use learning outcomes, yeah, or learning objective. That is the most important things that I will emphasize to my student teachers. Yeah, it's very important for us to write a good objective because it will influence the rest. It influence the assessment as well as it will influence the types of teaching strategy and the teaching activities that we choose for that particular lessons. Yeah. So they are specifically, I'm going to explain to all of you the difference between a learning objective and a learning goal, and the importance of having learning objective both for students as well as teachers. Yeah. So we are now in stage 1. Identify the desired result or learning objective. Right, what are learning objectives? So some of you are very familiar with what are learning objectives. Some of you are new lecturers in USM. So maybe you are not very familiar with what is learning objective. So this is a platform for you to know what is learning objective, when do we write it, and what's the functions of learning objective. Yeah. So learning objective are brief statements of what the learner will be able to do at the end of a lesson. Okay. I repeat, brief statement, just a brief one. It doesn't need to be long, yeah? Of what the learner will be able to do, what the learner will be able to achieve at the end of the lesson. So again, this is UbD, this is backward design. It's focused more on the learner first instead of the teaching. The teaching comes second, the learning comes first. For example, when given a diagrams, this is example of a very good learning objective. Yeah. When given a diagram, students are able to correctly label at least 8 of the 11 parts of microscopes. What's so good about it? In writing a learning objective, there are 3 components that you need to consider: the behavior, the behavior dia, right? Let me show you. Criterion and also the condition. Yeah, these are the part of a learning objective: behavior, criterion, and condition. So if we go back to the example here, when given a diagrams, okay, that is one part of a good learning objective. Given a diagrams, students are able to correctly label at least 8 of 11 parts of microscope. So it consists of the 3 elements of objective: behavior, condition, and criterion. So now let's look at the difference between learning goals and the learning objective. Yeah, learning goals, long term, broad, focus on the big picture. Yeah. Okay, kalau kita lihat kepada program kita ada banyak learning goals lah. It's broad, it's long term. But learning objective is short term, it's specific, it's focused on individual skills. This is learning objective, specifically for that particular unit, particular topic that you're going to teach. Yeah, we call it as learning objective and not learning goal. Goal, long term. What are our learning goals by the end of this program, end of this course? We may have a learning goal. Yeah. But when we talk about learning objective, it is more specific into a certain units that you're going to teach. Yeah. And it's focused on individual skills, not the big picture. Right. Let's pause and consider. Okay. Now that we have briefly looked at what a learning objective is, what purpose do you think they serve in the classroom for both the teacher and the students? What's the functions of having a learning objective? Apa fungsi dia? I think I explained so many times so that the students will get a better understanding. Yeah. So importance of learning objective, where learning objective are critical components of instruction and the backbone of lesson planning. Yeah. It's the backbone. Especially in backward design, they are so emphasized on objective. Yeah, learning objective. Yeah, so today I'm introducing you one plan which called backward design. Yeah, backward design in our lesson plan where it focus more on the learning objective. It's the backbone of lesson planning where it eliminate the hit or miss learning, something that we forgot to teach. Yeah, something that we did not teach. That is what is meant by hit or miss learning. Yeah. Right, for teachers, it guides the selections of instructional materials and activities. Yeah, after we have the objective, it will guide us to select a proper instructional materials and activities. Connects contents and the assessments. We have the contents, it connects with the assessments from the objective that we have created and keeps the focus on student learning. Yeah, it keeps the level of learning at the forefront for a balanced unit. And what would be the benefit for the students? It gives clear purpose to focus their learning efforts. Let them know exactly what is expected of them and allow ownership of their learning and progress. Sometimes we go into a classroom, either a lecture hall or a tutorial. All right, today we're going to learn about the contents. Let's say we're going to talk about different kinds of bacteria, for example. You just say that. We are going to learn about this. Right, let's start with our lecture. That is not stating a learning objective, not at all. Yeah? When you enter a lecture, you can tell the students today we are going to learn about different kinds of bacteria or diversity of bacteria. This would be the learning objective. You have to list down. List down all the objectives that you intended for your students to gain by the end of the lessons. It's very important. Yeah, when I train my students in PPIP, the minute you enter the class, you must write or you must show to your students what are your learning objectives. You just cannot verbally say it. Actually, because I'm a teacher, so these are the actual or the proper way of teaching. You enter the class, you tell the contents, and then show them. Or you can write them on the whiteboard. These are the learning objectives. Specifically, what are the objectives? Usually, in one lessons, we don't have many learning objectives. Minimum is to have 2 or 3 learning objectives. Maximum usually would be 5. Yeah, that would be the ideal number of learning objective. Yeah. So it gives the students, when they look at the objective, they know what are their purpose of teaching today. Yeah, focus to their learning efforts. Let them know exactly what is expected of them, what we expected from them, and allow ownership of their learning and progress. So they will think throughout the day, throughout the lesson. So this is what the teacher say. Objective, kena boleh buat ni, buat ni, buat ni. Oh, okay, dah masuk dalam otak. By the end of the class, I should be able to do that. Yeah, so dia ada orang kata win-win situation between the teacher and the students. Right. Like I said earlier, there are 3 parts of learning objective: behavior, condition, and criterion. Sometimes, well, most of us, including me sometimes, yeah, we only write learning objective using one part only, which is the behavior. We forgot about the conditions and we forgot about the criterion. So now let's look what is behavior in learning objective, what is condition, and what is criterion. So behavior, what is it? How is it related to learning outcomes or learning objective? So the behavior describe what the students will be able to do as a result of the learning. Able to do behavior. Behavior is some things that show, yeah. My behavior today is that I'm excited. That's why tangan semua naik. Tu menunjukkan saya excited. Kalau saya tak suka mengajak, saya duduk diam-diam macam ni je lah. Today, what is behavior? Behavior, it shows that I'm not in a good mood. I don't want to do my teaching. But today, yeah, behavior described student will be able to do as a result of the learning. So can you see the different behavior? Passive mode, active mode. Okay, a good teacher do that in the classroom. Right. Example, when given a diagram, students are able to correctly label at least 8 of the 11 parts of a microscope. So actually this example combines all aspects of behavior. Aspect of learning objective. But where in this example is a keyword showing the behavior of the students? Who can tell me? Who can tell me? Where in this example is the correct keywords for behavior? In this example. Dalam example ni mana dia? Apa yang saya conteng ni? Okay. Dr. Anishari said correctly label. Yeah, correctly label. Right, correct. How do you know? How do you know labels is the behavior? Yeah. Label parts of a microscope. Yeah, label parts of a microscope is a behavior. How do we know? How do we know label parts of microscope is a behavior? Because it's a verb. Yes, very good. Yeah, it's a verb. Perbuatan, kan? So behavior will be shown through our through verbs lah. Perbuatan kita. Apa yang kita tunjuk, itu menunjukkan kita punya sikap. So labels, the behavior is the label parts of a microscope. So for writing an effective lesson or learning objective, the verb must be an action verb. Yes, an action that is measurable. Yeah, action verb. Example can be defined, can list, they can list, can describe, yeah, compare. So those are measurable, objective, very good, yeah. Things to avoid verbs such as student, at the end of the class, student be able to understand, to know, to comprehend, to learn, to think critically. How do you know? Is it measurable? No. Yeah, they avoid and immeasurable. Immeasurable. Tak boleh dilihat lah dengan, tak boleh dikira lah. You cannot measure it. Yeah, how do you know the student understand? 100%, 50% understand, 30% understand. How do you know? Yeah, this is things that we need to avoid. Tak boleh diukur. Sorry. Yeah. Right. Let's pause and consider again. This is what I usually do in my workshop. Pause and consider. Pause and consider. Look at the following list. I want you to look at the following list of learning objective. Decide whether each has a behavior that is observable or unobservable. Choose one that does not have an observable behavior and make it observable. Ready, yeah? This is my instruction. Okay. Actually, when you, another effective way of teaching is that when you give instruction to your student, you show them. You don't just speak. Yeah, don't just speak. Actually, along the way, I'm going to explain. I'm going to tell you some of the good tips of teaching. Yeah, show the instruction. Okay, look at the following list of the learning objective. Decide whether each has a behavior that is observable or unobservable. Choose one that does not have an observable behavior. Choose one. Okay. Right, I'm giving you 1 minute. 1 minute cukup tak? 2 minit lah. 2 minutes. Right? There are 8 learning objective. You need to identify which one is observable and tak boleh tengok. Ya, yang boleh ukur tak boleh diukur. Okay, time's up. Right, let's look at the answer by Dr. Sharon. 1347. Okay, 1347 is observable. 1, okay, 1, 3, 4, 7. Okay, right, same goes to Dr. Haslina. Unobservable by Dr. Anis. 2, 5, 6, 8. All right. Okay, let's look at one by one. Okay, number 1. The student will describe. The student will describe. Describe. This is the verb. Yeah. Let's list down the verb first. The student will learn. This is the verb. The second verb, learn. The student will list. Okay. The student will arrange. The student, number 5, the student will understand. The student will become familiar. Number 6. And number 7, the student will identify. And finally, the student will continue to improve basic writing skill, including using proper punctuation. Continue to improve how to measure that. So correct or not? Yeah. 1, 3, 4, 7 is observable and 2, 5, 6, 8 is unobservable. Correct, yeah? Correct. Betul lah tu. Betul. Congratulations. Yeah. Okay. So it's either you can measure or cannot be measured, right? But sometimes kita lupa. We forgot. Kita letak juga. Students can understand. Yeah. Students, no. You have to be very specific in writing the learning objective, the verbs. So must be an action verbs, observable. And this is another thing that we tend to forget when we write a learning objective. Yes, an action verb is observable. Does it align with the learning level of students using the Bloom's taxonomy? Ini kadang-kadang kita lupa. We tend to forget, tends to not make it align with the Bloom's taxonomy. So we are using OBE in QA. Kita menggunakan curriculum OBE in USM. So I think most of you know what is Bloom taxonomy. Yeah, it's a framework used to categorize learning objective. It has 6 levels: remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So the most cognitive level that we apply to our students is the remembering part. That's why it's in the form of pyramid. Paling besar di bawah lah, maksudnya paling banyak. Yeah, when we teach in the classroom, we want our students to remember more and then understand it, apply, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So when it comes to writing a learning objective, this is what we should do. Do not write learning objective more on the higher order thinking skills, the higher complexity on Bloom taxonomy. Because sometimes when I look at the learning objective, you start with students able to analyze the patterns of blah, blah, blah. That is the first learning objective. That is wrong. That is totally wrong. You cannot write a learning objective. You cannot, yeah, want your students to learn by having a higher complexity followed by the lower level of complexity. That is not correct in a learning process. It should begin with the lower order thinking skills, then followed by higher order thinking skill. Yeah. So when we write a learning objective, cara kita susun pun kena betul. Right? You have to carefully plan your learning objectives. Start with the lower order and then followed by higher order thinking skill or higher order complexity based on Bloom taxonomy. And the number, let's say you have 4 learning objective, I would advise you to have 2 or 3 for the lower order and maybe only 1 for higher order. It's not easy for the students in one particular lessons. We want our students to have this high complexity. It's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult for them, even for higher education students. Yeah. Okay, you must remember a concept before you can understand. This is the principle of Bloom's. Remember first before you can understand. understand it first before you can apply. Yeah, able to analyze something before you can evaluate it. And you must have evaluated something before you can create it. But if you write your learning outcomes, start with the students able to create. Oh man. Yeah? Where are the remember, understand, or analyze part? How can they just suddenly create without remember or understand anything? Okay, so that's why sometimes we say we write learning objective, but the way we write is not in the correct order according to Bloom's hierarchy. Okay, lepas ni kita buat pada lower order and then baru kita tingkatkan to higher order thinking skill, and we use the keywords based on Bloom's taxonomy, which I think in OBE memang dah ada dah, yeah, for the MQA. Right, level 1, remember. Ini pun saya rasa all of you are very familiar with it. Student memorize and remember informations. Yeah. So what are the correct verbs? Define, label, list, name, and organize. Yeah. Second is understand. Student make sense of the informations. Right. The verbs include classify, describe, explain, identify, summarize, and compare. Okay. Describe is understand. And then apply. Student use information in new and concrete situations. So the verbs that include in calculating apply, include calculate, demonstrate, illustrate, model, predict, show, and solve. This means that if you use these keywords, actually we are using the apply level of cognitive levels. And then the level number 4, which is analyze. Student breakdowns material into its parts to better understand the structure. They analyze, yeah. So the verb includes analyze itself, categorize, illustrate, classify, criticize, simplify, and differentiate. So that is level 4. Yeah. So kalau kita buat OBE tu kita dah ada dah. Kan kita punya C berapa? C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6. Yeah, when we do our learning objective, kita punya CLO tu mesti ada based on the Bloom taxonomy. I think all of you are very good in that. Yeah. Okay, level 5, evaluate. Student make and defend judgment about the learning informations. The verb include defend, interpret, justify, assess, conclude, evaluate, and prove. So this is evaluate. Yeah, level number 5. And the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy level is create. Create di atas sekali, ya. Student put different pieces of information together from what they understand, from what they have analyzed, from what they have evaluated, they create. Right? A new structure or patterns. So the verbs include design, formulate, build, create itself, compose, generate. Okay. So these are examples, yeah, of learning objective based on behavior. First one, level 1, the student will be able to name. The student will be able to describe, falls under level 2. The student will be able to model. The student will be able to classify. The student will be able to design. The student will be able to develop. That is the highest Bloom taxonomy hierarchy. Yeah? So why using Blooms to write objective? Why? Kenapa kita kena guna Bloom? Kenapa OBE pun cakap kena guna Bloom? Kenapa MQA pun kata kita guna keywords of Bloom for us to write the learning objective? Because it helps with choosing an appropriate action verbs. The verb for behavior. Yeah. Focus on all 6 stages where consider the level of the learners and be aware of the target of the state standards. Yeah. So when we write the learning objective, you as a teacher, you must scan the background of your student first. Is this objective appropriate for all students? Or is it just appropriate for some group of students? So that's why I said the teacher is the coach. Yeah, you have to scan first. Okay, my lessons is the students able to create an apps. Create an apps. Create is the highest level of Bloom taxonomy. Produce an apps. Yeah, right? But in the classrooms, there are students who are not able, they are not very good in using digital tools. And you ask them to create an apps, which is not appropriate, yeah, because you know the background of your students is that some of them do not have cannot use, yeah, maybe not so much information of using a digital tools, and they do not know how to produce an app, so it'd be difficult for them. So maybe you can tone down a bit. Maybe you can ask the students to, if you want to use create online quiz, maybe, yeah, instead of having app for assessments. So tone down a bit. You know, you are the expert in your classroom, yeah. And for verbs, an action verb, observable, align with the level of learning where our students we are using the Bloom's taxonomy, and only one. You cannot combine two verbs under one learning objective. Or at the end of the class, students should be able to list and to analyze. Oh, cannot. Cannot. Tak boleh, eh? You kena asing. You have to separate. List one, when you use the word list, that is one learning objective. Analyze would be another learning objective. You cannot combine. So only one, yeah? Okay, so this is wrong. Identify and explain. Cannot. You have to separate it, yeah? So these are example of effective behavior: sequence, summarize, illustrate, compare, write, yeah? Okay, the second thing that you may consider under learning objective is condition. What is it? So actually in my workshop today, I will focus more on the learning objective, because in backward design, they are focuses more on the learning objective or the learning. Yeah. So condition, what are the conditions in writing a good or effective learning objective? So the condition describe how the learner will be expected to perform the behavior. Yeah. Describe how the learner will be expected to perform the behavior. For example, when given a diagram, students are able to correctly label at least 8 of the 10 parts of microscope. So which one do you think would be the condition? Okay, now the behavior is label, yeah, parts of microscope. Okay, that is behavior. So who can tell me which one is the condition? Okay, maybe you can write at the chat box. Which one is the condition? No one? Tak tahu. Alright. Okay, condition. What is it? Okay, Dr. Suzila, 8 of the 11. Right. When given a diagram, that is the condition. Students are able to correctly label at least 8 of the 11 parts of microscope. So the condition is when given a diagram. Okay, the condition, under the condition of students getting the diagram, the student should be able to correctly label, yeah, at least 8 of the 11 parts of microscope. So the condition is using the diagram. When given a diagram, yeah, diagram is the condition. When given a diagram. So the condition identifies what the learner will be able to use. Apa yang dia akan guna. Yeah, what the learner will not be able to use. The concept or environment the behavior is accomplished in. That is condition. You are given a diagram. So now I want you to do this. You are given a chart. You are given an infographic. Yeah. You are given experiments, chemical ke apa ke, buat ini. So that is the condition. Okay, so there are basically 4 types or 4 categories of condition. Tools, references, aids, and context. Yeah, which tool tu physical instrument lah. Calculator, compass, protector, microscope. References, text-based, paper or electronic. Yeah, periodic table, textbooks, notes, dictionary, thesaurus, so on and so forth. Aids, on-the-job support. Example, checklist, flashcards, diagrams, rubric. So the student are giving this. Okay, you are given this, please do this. And context, environment or situation where the student will perform. For example, laboratory, role play scenario, simulation, makerspace, computer lab. Okay, so these are the four categories of condition. You are giving a spana, buat ni. You are giving a apa? You are giving a pen. You are giving this. Those are tools. Reference textbooks, activity books, aids, diagram, charts, context, role play, simulations. Yeah. So let's pause and consider again. Look at the following list of learning objectives. Decide whether each condition is effective or ineffective. Choose one that is ineffective and make it effective. So maybe we don't have much time, but maybe you can scan through. Which one do you think is a good learning objective? Given a standard sentence, the student will be able to identify the nouns and verbs. Standard sentence is the condition. Yeah. Student will be able to identify noun and verb. Given cards, the student will sort into two groups. Given a division problem, student will list the steps to find the answer. Using the text Mother Bruce, the student will identify the 4 story elements. Following 2 lectures on the Civil War, the student will be able to list the events that lead up to the war. And the student will measure the length of object found in the classroom. So, terus bagi jawapan lah, senang. So, yang colour merah itulah jawapan dia. Yeah? The effective objective. Given a cards, student will sort into 2 groups. You give them a card. Cards is ABM lah, alat bantu mengajar kan, aids. Yeah? Following 2 lectures on the Civil War. Okay, after the lecture maybe references, yeah, the condition is reference. The student will be able to list is a verb, the events that lead up to the war, and the student will measure the length of object found in the classroom. Yeah. So these are other example of effective condition. Yes, number 2 is good. Okay. Example of effective condition, using a metric ruler, giving a set of whole numbers without the aid of class notes, given a list of chemical element, given a Venn diagram, without a formula chart, working in cooperative group, using Google Cardboard. So these are all effective condition. I'm talking about effective condition. Yeah. Right, the third one that you have to consider in writing a learning outcome is the criterion. What is it? Yeah, what is the criterion? Criteria lah. So the criterion is the portion of the objective that states how well the students must perform to show mastery. Yeah, for example, I'm using the same example. When given a diagram, students are able to correctly label at least 8 of the 11 parts. So we now know that the behavior is correctly labeled, part of microscope. The condition is given a diagram. And which one is the criterion now? Which one is the criterion now? Yes, correct. At least 8 of the 11 parts. Yeah? When given a diagram, student able to correctly label. The criteria is at least 8 of the 11 parts of a microscope. You cannot expect your students in that particular lessons, maybe 1 hour, to able to label all parts. No. We have to be considerate. At least 3/4 of the amounts. Yeah, 8 of 11 parts. Right? 7 out of 10. 3/4. Not 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10 is too less. Too less. Right? The criteria is too less. Right? Not too high, not too low. Usually 3/4. Yeah, at least 8 of the 11 parts. So this is the criterion. So the criterion identify a degree of accuracy, a quantity of correct responses, a time limit in which it must be completed. Yeah, degree of accuracy, a quantity of correct responses, and time limit. You can use time as your criterion as well. So this learning objective need more than one criterion stated. Is that okay? If you have more than one criterion, is it okay? Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. You can write more than one criteria. List 8 of 11. You can label 8 of 11 component within 10 minutes, for example. Yes, it's okay. You can do that. Yeah. Things to avoid, grading as feedback to student. Don't set your criterion at too high or low of a level. Like I said, not too high, not too low. Yeah. Right. Pause and consider again. Look at the following list of learning objectives. Decide whether each has criteria involved, and if so, identify it. Then choose one that does not and add a realistic criterion on it. So maybe you can have a look at it. Yeah, which one have a good criterion? Good criterion. Given 10 sentences, the student will be able to identify the grammar mistakes. Tak nampak pun criterion kat situ kan, number 1. Given a standard ruler, the student will measure the length of given object to the nearest half inch. Okay, ada nampak lah criterion. Yeah. Given an English-Spanish dictionary, the student will be able to conjugate verbs in Spanish. Conjugate, macam mana nak measure conjugate verbs, ya? Using a predict table, the student will be able to balance at least 10 chemical reaction. At least 10 chemical reaction. Maybe there are more. Given at least of frequently used words, the student will be able to read at least 95 words correctly within 3 minutes. This one have two criterion, yeah? 95 words and within 3 minutes. Given 2 pieces of text, the student will be able to list what they have in common. So now you know the syarat untuk tulis learning objective. Dia ada behavior, good behavior, condition and criterion. Cuba tengok daripada all of these 6, which one is a good one? Yeah. Which one is a good criterion? Good criterion. Okay. Number 2. Given a standard ruler, the student will measure the length of given object to the nearest half inch. So that is good criterion, yeah, nearest half inch. And then number 4, using a predict table, the student will be able to balance at least 10 chemical reactions. So that is a good criterion, yeah, at least, not all, but at least 10 chemical reactions. And number 5, like I said, they have 2 criterions in it. Able to read at least 95 words, is measurable, yeah, 95 words correctly within 3 minutes. You have 2 criterion here. Yeah, so these are all good criterion. The others, no criterion. Yeah, no criterion in it. Sorry, habis bateri pula. Right. Kena laju ni. Okay. Writing a learning objective. I think I'm going to go quite fast on this because it will be good if we have a hands-on activity. Yeah, writing a learning objective. There are 3 steps. Yeah, gather material, unpack the standard, and write your objective. Where number 1, loosely order your standards. You have the learning standard. Yeah, you have the learning standard. Kalau kat sini, kalau guna UbD, kita panggil program outcomes, ya. Yeah. Okay, ordering standard, you have the order of your standards, right? This is the example. Use concrete object to develop formula for the volume of rectangular prism. I'm using mathematics here. Determines the volume of rectangular prism with whole number side lengths, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are all the standards, learning standards, yeah, the learning standards. And then identify the level of learning. This is the second step of writing a learning objective. After you have determined the standards, then you have to identify the level of learning. So level of learning is usually we use the terms from, the keywords from Bloom taxonomy, For example, standard 1, learning standard 1, use concrete objects to develop the formula for the volume of a rectangular prism. Okay, so standard 1 here. Okay, use concrete objects to develop the formula for the volume of rectangular prism. This is the learning standard. Now we want to convert it into learning object, learning objective. Yeah. If you are if you know about the curriculums, in the curriculum, the learning standard is different from the learning objective. Yeah. Learning standard is what it is stated in the curriculum, but learning objective is specifically what we want to do in our classroom. Yeah, or I said learning standard is something written in the syllabus. Yeah, in the syllabus. But when it comes to transfer it into a classroom, you have to decide your own learning objective. So if you ask me, is learning standard and learning objective the same? I would say no. Learning standard is in the syllabus itself. It's general. But how you translate it into your classroom, you have to design your own learning objective. That's why the first step in learning objective is to loosely order your standards. And then you match it or start to identify the level of the learning. Okay, so for the first standards, to develop the formula for the volume of a rectangular prism, develop the formula, the appropriate terms to use is create. Yeah, this is the level of learning, create. Third, select and observable verbs and write your behavior. Yeah, so develop the formula, the level of learning is create. So what would be the behavior for creating? Of course, develop lah. Yeah, develop a formula for volume of rectangular prism. Based on Bloom taxonomy, for the level of taxonomy under create, the appropriate keyword to use is develop. Yeah. So other standards summarize main ideas in text in ways that maintain meaning, logical order. So level of remembering is remember, because you can use identify. Right, after you select an observable verbs and write your behavior, you can add a condition. Use concrete objects to develop the formula for the volume of a rectangular prism. Use concrete objects. So the level of learning is create, behavior is develop. Now we need to add condition. Condition, like I said, there are several aspects of condition, like tools, references, aids. Yeah. So the condition here is given centimeter cubes. Right, centimeter cubes maybe can be teaching aids, yeah, or tools. Centimeter cubes and a small box. Right, that is a condition. Yeah, because we want to measure concrete objects. Right. For this example, level of learning is remembering. The behavior is identified. The verb for behavior is identified and given a paragraph about dolphins. This is reference, yeah. And number 5 for writing a learning objective is to add criterion. So we have loosed the learning standard. We have identified the level of learning. We have identified the behavior. We identified the condition. Finally, we need to identify the criterion or to state the criterion. Yeah. So for this, I decided to put an accurate formula. They have to write an accurate formula. Okay. And for this example, find out 7 paragraphs from a non-fiction article on dolphin. 7 paragraphs. This is in language. Yeah? So put the 3 components together to form an objective. So you add condition. Okay, condition number 1. This is at the very first part of the sentence of your learning objective, condition. And you must write the word student will be able to. Even though this is not part of the writing learning objective, but this is what usually we write for learning objective. Student will be able to. Yeah. So condition plus the student will be able to plus the behavior and finally the criterion. So 1, Condition plus student will be able to plus behavior plus criterion will lead you to write a good learning or effective learning objective. So when we put all together, given centimeter cube and a small box, that is the condition. Remember, first we write the condition. Student will be able to, so this is condition, and con plus wording that we should write in a learning objective. Student will be able to develop. Develop is behavior. The one in orange is behavior. Able to develop an accurate formula. That is the criterion. Okay. Develop for finding the volume of rectangular prism is also the behavior. Right? So condition plus student be able to plus behavior plus criterion will lead you to produce a effective learning objective. Okay, so this is a step-by-step of writing a good learning or effective. I will write the words effective learning objective. Given a non-fiction article on dolphin, that is the condition. The student will be able to identify the main idea, that is the verbs, which is the behavior. 5 of the 7 paragraph would be the criterion. Okay, so this is a good learning objective, having behavior, condition, criterion, and with the word student will be able to. Okay, so the tips for writing effective learning objective: use clear, student-friendly language. Do not use jargons or acronyms. Keep it short. Keep it short. Keep it student-centered. Make sure it's student-centered. Student will be able to. That is student-centered. Right? So that is a learning objective. Actually, this is just a small part. If we go for a hands-on activity later on, maybe I will show you. I have all the tools for writing a good okay, objective and assessment planning worksheet. If we go for hands-on, I will give you all the template we can do together. But today not enough time. Just lebih kepada giving ni saja, direction, direct teaching saja. Okay. Maybe we can have 5 minutes break maybe before we proceed. The break set. Lepas ni dia dah tak banyak sangat dah. The assessments and also the strategy, which all of you are quite familiar with. All right, we shall have a 5-minute breaks. Thank you. Alright, let's continue. Lagi minum dah. Okay. So far so good tak? So far okay. Boleh faham Alright. So let us continue with we are now at the third sections, Third sections of this workshop, choosing right assessment for student. So we have, if you refresh back on the backward design, first we have to write an effective learning objective. So we have covered that in the second sections. And now we have to choose the right assessments that align with the objective that we have created for the learning process. Yeah. So in these sections, I'm going to introduce to all of you about what are assessments, why are assessments important in the backward design process, and why are assessment important in supporting student learning. So in our traditional practice, our common practice, when we have the learning objective, we straight away think of what would be the appropriate learning strategy, the strategy and the activity that we want to do in the classroom. And only last part is considering about the appropriate assessments that we can use to measure the objective. But in the backward design, the choosing appropriate assessment comes second. Yeah, it's in second stage. Okay, it's in the second stage. Right? So effective learning objective, assessments, and then learning activities and strategies. So in stage 2, you have to determine the evidence of student learning. So sometimes we in backward design, they use the words finding or determining evidence. Yeah, determining evidence. Oh, I forgot to tell you that. I have books, This is books of the Understanding by Design Guide, Creating High Quality Units. So inside this book, what Wiggins and McTighe have gave us is some template. Dia ada template. That's why I said it's important for me to do a hands-on activity so that I can share all of you the templates that I have when I went for a course and also in the book. So I have 2 books. Yeah, I have 2 books of Understanding by Design by Wiggins and McTighe. So I bought this book from Amazon. Yeah, I bought the book from Amazon. But Mr. Kusaimi, if you wish, you want to look at the books, you can just come to my rooms and you can have a look. And also, there are also books, this Understanding by Design in CDAE. Ada juga dekat CDAE. Yeah, Prof. Karim, I bought it and put it at CDAE. Ada. So, I bought it from Amazon lah. I bought it because saya nak join dia punya kursus last year lah. I went for the workshop last year. So I decided to bought myself so that I can get a better understanding. And they give you a lot of template. Actually, I have a lot of template too that I want to share. If I want to show you the templates that I have, maybe so that you boleh eager sikit lah nak datang for my workshop. Okay, saya boleh bagi. Ni, these are all the templates that I would like to share with all of you in the workshop that I'll be conducting face-to-face. Saya ada banyak template. Yeah, so bila dia face-to-face tu senang. Kita buat, I show you the appropriate one. So that is what my intention to do after this lah. But for this time, just an introduction first. Okay? So later bila waktu face-to-face, I bring the books and give you all the templates to help you to design your own Understanding by Design using a backward design. Okay. So what are assessments? I think all of you know what are assessments. Yeah. Assessments are any number of broad approaches used to gauge students' learning. Yeah. They give students a way to demonstrate their knowledge and skills. They are a way to document skill acquisitions, learning progress, or educational needs of a student. So that's why in assessments, we provide evidence. What are the evidence to show that the students really understand? What are the evidence? Kita panggil evidence lah, bukti. So we need to do assessments. Okay, to know whether what are the levels of their understanding, how do they demonstrate their knowledge and skills that we have created from learning objective, yeah, and the way to improve themselves, yeah. So the purpose of assessment, allow the teacher or other key stakeholder to monitor student progress, help inform and guide teaching for more effective instruction, and help to inform student of their learning progress and status. Yeah. Saya ni dah lama tak mengajar face to face. To be honest, yeah, my school is the school that have not implement face to face class yet. So I miss, rindu sangat mengajar face to face ni. Sangat rindu. Ya, kadang-kadang saya bawa student saya for this semester, saya ada bawa student saya pergi tepi tasik. Yeah, I teach biology teaching method. During the online they are not so they passive learning lah, ya. So bila saya bawa pergi tasik, we had a picnic, semua belajar dekat tasik, seronok. Actually they are active students. So I miss it so much, ya. So why are assessments important? It measures student achievement and skill mastery. It helps answer the question, yeah. How do I know that they learn what I wanted them to learn? How well did they learn the objective? Who mastered it and who didn't? Yeah, which part of the objective did students struggle with? What misconceptions do they still have? Yeah, and it's provide feedback. Okay, there are 4 main type of assessment. Okay, ni pun saya tak nak go one by one, but I will go one by one juga, but quite fast lah, ya. We have diagnostic, formative, summative, and interim ataupun benchmark. Tapi yang 3 commonly used for our teaching and learning is these 3 lah. Yeah, diagnostic assessment, formative, and summative. I think most of you know what is diagnostic, formative, and summative assessment. Yeah. But I'm going to show you a very quick one. Diagnostic assessment. When do we do diagnostic assessment? Yeah, it's a type of assessment used to collect data on a student's strengths, weakness, knowledge, and skill before a unit of instruction. That's why it's called diagnose. Yeah, we want to diagnose the ability of the students before we start a unit of instruction. Yeah, kita start dengan satu topik tu, we diagnose first. Okay. So the purpose of diagnostic assessment, plan meaningful and efficient instruction. Yeah, identify the gaps. How much does the student know? How much does the student doesn't know? How much should I teach? Yeah, how much should the student learn? Yeah, and it's important for us to identify any misconceptions or partial misunderstanding. That's why when you want to study about the misconception arises among students about a particular topic, it's good for you to do a diagnostic test. Yeah, and when you know there is a certain misconception, you can rectify the misconception throughout your teaching and learning. And then differentiate instruction, remediate, enrichment. Yeah, nowadays, yeah, the differentiate instruction is quite famous. Dalam Ministry of Education, dalam bahasa Melayu dia panggil pembelajaran terbeza. It's a new terms in KPM, ya. Cikgu-cikgu sekarang pun dah guna. Pembelajaran terbeza, that is a new terms in bahasa Melayu. Differentiate instruction meaning that when we diagnose to know the levels of students' background in terms of knowledge and skill, and also dia punya different learning style. Actually, it's in my slide, but I tak sempat nak tunjuk different learning style. Next time I will put it. Yeah, whether they are auditory, kinesthetic, yeah, ataupun formal. Dia ada 6 different learning style. That is differentiate instruction. And creates a baseline. What should you teach for your students? What should they learn? Yeah. So when should diagnostic assessment to be used? It usually given at the start. Mesti at the beginning. Tak boleh at the end. Yeah. Beginning of an academic school year or semester. Before the start of a unit. Yeah. Before start of a topic. Before a lesson where a prerequisite is involved. So if your lessons need prerequisite, so this is some things that the teacher will do when it involves skills, yeah, skills acquisition. So they have a certain prerequisite. So we can do a diagnostic test, yeah, whether the students are able to continue with the lessons or not. So type of diagnostic assessment, we have self-assessment, initial writing prompt, running record, performance task and quick journal writes. Saya tak go one by one lah, ya. So a diagnostic assessment should be short and focused, quick and comprehensive. Yeah. For example, upcoming unit on fractions, mathematics. Yeah. Comparing fractions like denominators. Kita nak kena compare lah. Nak kena tahu. Dia orang tahu tak pasal fractions. Right. That is diagnostic assessment. Very short. Usually you do it at the beginning to look at the gaps and to differentiate students' ability in learning, so on and so forth. Yeah. Second one is formative assessment. Dulu masa saya PNP dengan Prof Karim pun ada juga didedahkan dengan ni. Ada juga yang tak tahu apa formative and summative. How to differentiate. We are unable to differentiate what is formative assessment and what is summative assessment. Yeah. So formative assessments is a type of assessment used to collect data on a student's performance during. Okay. So keywords for formative, during a unit of instruction or during the teaching and learning. So if before, that is what we call as diagnostic test. If during, or diagnostic assessment, yeah. If during, formative assessment. During the instructions, that is formative assessment. So what are the purpose of formative assessment? Provide information on how a classroom strategy is working. Provide information on student current understanding to decide on next steps. And provide student feedback to monitor their own success in learning and know how to improve. So mainly it's about student. Okay, and of course teacher lah. We want to know whether the strategy that we choose, is it working or not? Yeah. Does the student understands so that we can move to the next step? And to get a student to get feedback, to know whether they learn, what they learned and what they know have improved or not from the previous one. Yeah, so that's why we do formative. So in formative assessments, it's very good to have student feedback. Yeah, to do effective student feedback. Clear communicator, specific, purposeful, timely, focus on the process or task. Okay. So basically, when you want to get a student feedback, it's either evaluative or descriptive. You can divide it into two. Yeah. In evaluative, involve a value of judgment. Example, that's a good essay. You did a great job. That is the types of feedback that you should give. Yeah. If descriptive, it describes what the student said or did and provide guidance for improvement. Example, that's a good introduction because you have covered the main point we discussed at the beginning. Now, which point do you think you should expand on? So the teacher are doing scaffolding technique. Yeah? Scaffold. We call it, in constructivism theory, we call it scaffold. Enhance the student to think and then gauge them to learn more and more and more. So if evaluative, just give a feedback. Oh, that's good. Essay, great job. But descriptive, you want the students to do more with the help of your guidance. Yeah, with the help of your guidance. We call it scaffolding. Yeah. Right, so these are the three types of descriptive feedback: reminder prompt, scaffold prompt, example prompt, which maybe I'm not should not explain in details lah. Tapi I usually do scaffold prompt. Yeah, I dig in. I ask them to do more and more by asking question. Because I'm from science background, this is what we do in constructivist theory for science. We scaffold our students to get the correct answer. Yeah. Okay, this would be the feedback tips for choosing formative assessment, yeah, or the feedback. Feedback is best when it's done orally. Yeah, when you want to do a formative assessment through student feedback, it's best to do orally. You ask the students, yeah. You talk to your students. You discuss with your students, yeah. Allow time for the student to act on the feedback that was given. Okay, sometimes we give a prompt questions, yeah, in the classroom to get the feedback. Okay, prompt questions. But the reason is for us to scaffold or to do inquiry. Okay, inquiry approach is approach lain lah yang tak boleh saya nak cerita panjang kalau cerita pasal inquiry based learning. But when we ask students, let's say I call one of the person, okay, Azman, can you tell me blah 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 blah? Don't expect your students to give feedback immediately. No. Okay, the techniques of answering and questioning is that after you give feedback, give them times. Maybe about 30 seconds for them to think. And don't ever, after you give the answer, the question to the students, seeking for their feedback, after a while, they did not give any feedback and then you jump to another students. That is not appropriate to do. Because maybe at that time, the students are thinking the correct answer and they are ready to answer the question. But suddenly, you transfer the questions to the other persons. It will make them heartbroken lah. Psychologically, dia akan heartbroken. So, lepas dia tak nak jawab dah. Kalau tanya, dia tak mau. I'm not bothered to answer. So, that's what happened lah in the classroom. So, that's why we give them time when we want to know about the feedback. Ya, dia punya, bila kita bagi soalan tu, kita nak tanya, kita nak dapat feedback tu, give them some times. Okay, that's a tip. Tip 3, make sure your feedback is balanced lah. Jangan terlampau susah, jangan terlampau senang. Ya. And tip 4, use the weekly student feedback recording. This is if you want to do documentations, yeah, you can have weekly student feedback recording tools. What are the positive feedbacks from the students and what are the improvement needed for the students, yeah. So yang ni kalau kita tengok dalam kita punya course file, kita punya CQI tu. CQI tu kita buat macam ni lah. This is what we do in the CQI. Yeah? So when should it be used? Formative assessment, when should it be used? Daily. It should be used daily, all the time, because it happened during the class, during the learning and teaching and learning process. So you should do it daily lah. Every time you teach, kena tanya, yeah. And there are 4 types of famous formative assessments that there are 9, but the most famous one are learning ataupun respond log. Okay, kita tanya. Exit, admit tickets or reflection journal, ask them to write a reflections. 1-minute paper or short answer questions. Okay, or think, pair, share. Think, pair, share is they turn to the neighbor, turn to their partner, we give them questions where A and B will discuss and then they will share the answer to the teachers. These are the common formative assessment that we want to do promptly in the classroom. Yeah, others, questioning, conferencing, observation, quick, graphic organizers. These are other type of formative assessment. But I'm not saying it's not good. It's good, but you need to have a proper proper guideline to do a formative assessment if you choose these 3, 4, 5, 8, and 9. But for 1, 2, 6, 7, it's prompt. Yeah, there's immediately you can ask the student to do that. Yeah. A formative assessment should reflect the learning objective for the day. Okay, you have the learning objective. So the formative assessment must match your learning objective yang kita dah susun cantik tadi. Yeah. Fit the time allotment. Right. Provide feedback to both the teacher and the students. You gather the feedback from the students and the student get feedback from you. It's a win-win situation. Yeah. So tips on formative assessment, try to use a variety of assessments. Don't use the same assessments all the time. Quizzes per setiap hari. Nanti dia tak minat. Sometimes you can ask them to write a reflections, yeah. Reflection, and then orally you can ask them. Okay, tukar-tukar lah. Tip 2, include opportunities for both individual and group work. So don't ask feedbacks individually all the times. Like I said, you can do think, pair, share. Turn to your neighbor. These are another terms for think, pair, share. Turn to your neighbor. You turn to your neighbor, right? Discuss and then share. All right? Or maybe a group work, a bigger group. group of 4 or group of 5, discuss and then share. Tip 3, once you have assessed, take action. That's why taking feedback is very good. Yeah, you assess them, you should know what are the levels of understanding among the students so that you can improve them, so that you can make sure that they will learn better in the future. So that's what we do in formative assessments, yeah? And tip 4, try not to take a grade on formative assessments. Try not to. But if you have to, then there's no problem with it. But if possible, when you give a formative assessment or asking feedback, do not grade them. Do not grade them. Oh, I will give you grade B or grade C for not answering my questions correctly. We don't do that in formative assessments. We do that in summative assessments. So, in formative assessment, dia relax. Chill-chill je. Tanya soalan, dapat feedback. Kalau tak ada jawab, tanya lagi. Tanya lagi. Ya, you scaffold. Ya, scaffold sampai dia boleh jawab. That is formative assessments in the classroom. And the final one is summative assessments and the interim and benchmark assessments. Yeah, let's look at summative assessment. A type of assessment used to collect data on a student's achievement at the end. So this is the keywords for summative assessments. So I repeat, diagnostic assessments, beginning or before the lessons. Formative, during. Summative, end. So lepas ni harap tak confused dah. Kalau orang tanya summative, end. Formative, during. Diagnostic, before. Yeah. So clearly I differentiate. Clearly diagnostic, formative and summative, dia dah ada dia punya timeline bila kita boleh buat. Yeah. So the purpose of summative assessment is to determine whether students have mastered the learning objectives. Because it's occurring at the end of the lessons, yeah. So we have the learning objective that we have stated at the beginning. Like I said, bila kita masuk dalam classroom, okay, today our learning objective is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Tunjuk kat student. So the students have, when they look at the learning objective, they will plan what I need to do, what are the teacher expectation, how my previous knowledge and skill is not good, so I have to learn more in this lesson. So how to determine all the learning objective, whether it's achieved or not? The summative assessments at the end of the lessons, yeah? It is also to improve curriculum and curriculum planning from year to year. Right, that's why in e-learning, if you look at e-learning, we have the students' assessments at the end of our lesson kan. Dah tutup dah 27 April, semalam last date of the learning assessments in e-learning. I'm not sure whether you ask your student to do it or not, but it's compulsory now, right? It's good to get a feedback from the students so that we as a teacher can analyze. Yeah, we can analyze the way we teach them. I like to look at the assessment. I ask my students to do assessments. Yeah, so their assessment towards my teaching so that I can improve my teaching from time to time. All right. So to improve curriculum and curriculum planning from year to year, that's why we do summative assessment. To evaluate the effectiveness of program from year to year. Yeah. Okay. So when should summative assessment be used? Like I said, summative assessment are usually given at the conclusion or at the end of instructional periods. End of unit, end of course, end of grade level. All got to do with the end of the lesson ke, program ke, apalah kat hujung. Okay. So type of summative assessments, yang saya circle ni, the one that I circle is the most popular one. Yeah, culminating projects, do projects and portfolios. Yeah. But in the higher institution, we go for final exams. Yeah, that's what we do. We go for final exams, right? And end of semester or midterm exam. State test tak ada lah dalam higher institution. We don't have state test. This is for schooling, yeah. But project and portfolios are something we do also, especially when we convert the examination to fully coursework. This is what we do. We ask students to do project, portfolios, yeah, assignments. So that is at the end of the lessons, yeah. Not lesson, at the end of a unit. Okay. 4 aspects of a summative assessment. Authentic. It must be authentic assessment. Authentic means you have rubrics. You must have rubrics or PMM. Ada marking scheme, yeah. It must have a marking scheme that is important for a summative assessment. It must be reliable. Validity, valid. That's why kita ada jawatankuasa yang vetting kan. Vetting tu nak tengok validation and the reliability of the questions. Yeah. Variety. Have I asked students to present information in a variety of ways? It must be variety. Tak boleh buat folio. It must be variety. So if you look at the list of assessments that given by us based on the MQA punya checklist, ada banyak kan? Saya rasa ada berapa puluh tak? Ada banyak. Berpuluh-puluh lah. So it must be variety. Yeah. Right, next one is interim benchmark assessments. Apa benda interim? Ini some things that we don't really do, yeah, because it's a type of assessment used to assess student performance at periodic interval throughout the school year or throughout the semester, which kita tak buat sangat lah, but I introduced jugalah. Yeah, to measure student growth over time, to target additional resources for students and teachers, to track progress towards critical milestones, and to show parents where their child is progressing and what areas they need extra help in. Yeah. So interims is done beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. So paling senang nak ingat kalau siapa yang ada anak-anak dekat sekolah, this is what we call as PBD. Pernah dengar PBD tak? Yang ada anak-anak kat sekolah tu mesti tahu ya, pentaksiran bilik darjah lah. Ya, dia ada, kalau tak silap, pentaksiran bilik darjah di sekolah, they are every 3 months. Every 3 months, the teachers are struggling to get the assessments of the students. Ya, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. Tapi kita dekat universiti, kita tak ada kan. Right. So, critical piece of the learning process. Kita dah go through learning objective. Tengok dah, we have looked at type of assessments. Now we are moving on to learning activities and strategies, which there are so many learning activities and strategies. And I believe that if you carefully follow CDAE workshop, you will gain a lot of learning activities and strategies. Ya, you boleh dapat, you boleh belajar banyak CDAE buat. Ya. Okay. Last sections, yeah. Instructional strategy, learning activities. It's 11:40. Is it okay with all of you? I'm expecting we finish at 12. Boleh ya? Extra 30 minit. Masih semangat? Are you all still okay for me to continue? Okay, alright, very good, yeah. Right, section 4, instructional strategy, learning activities. So learning strategies and activities should be clearly and intentionally aligned with the objective and assessment already. So for our backward design, we have carefully write an effective learning objective. And then we have choose appropriate assessments that align with the learning objective that we have developed. And now we want to know, dah ada objective, we have the assessment. What would be the appropriate instructional strategy and learning activities that we can use in teaching the contents in the classroom? Yeah, so it's critical also to plan appropriate instructional strategy and learning activities. I'm not talking about implementation. Today, I'm talking about planning or designing it. Yeah, the first steps in pedagogy. Okay, so dah habis dah ni. Ni habis. Now we are at the third stage. Right? Plan, instruction, which involve activities and strategies. So this is the stages of backward design under UbD, yeah, understanding by design. If you follow this, insyaAllah, the student will have a good understanding. But every one of us have, of course, they have their own preferences. Ya, kita ada preferences kita masing-masing. Like me, before this, I usually when I do my lesson plan in every unit, I do 5E. I like to do 5E instructional plan. Yeah, 5E by B. Okay, but I'm moving on into UbD. Yeah, I'm moving on into UbD. Before this, memang saya buat banyak 5E lah when I plan my unit. 5E. Nantilah ada masa saya ajar 5E pula. So planning instruction, what exactly is involved in planning instruction? So instructional strategies plus with the learning activities, it will give you the meaningful instruction. This is what we want to do, what we want lah. After having a good objective, have the come out with a good assessments, way of making the students to get the big ideas is to have a meaningful instruction. There are banyak. Actually, there are so many instructional strategies. Like I said, if you follow all the CDAE workshop, if you go to the YouTube of CDAE, banyak sangat. Prof Karim berbagi banyak ya about the instructional strategies. But the common one that we usually do in our classroom is direct instruction, like what I'm doing now, direct instruction. We do demonstration if it involves science and technology. We do cooperative learning where students sit down together and discuss. We do discovery and inquiry-based learning where we ask students, scaffold the students so that the student will discover and explore. And we do project-based learning where the student can come out with their own products. If you ask me, I have all of the notes of all of these five instruction strategies, but not today. I'm not going to explain each and every one, but in the future workshop that we're going to have, I will explain one by one what are they. Yeah. So what is their purpose? Having a good instructional strategy in backward design. To provide a delivery mechanism for presenting content, to provide teachers with the flexibility to meet individual learning needs, to make teaching and learning fun. Ni saya suka ni. To make teaching and learning fun. To keep students from becoming bored. We don't want for them to be bored. We want them to be active. Yeah. To enhance instruction and boost learning. So you need to properly plan what are the strategy and activity that you want to use in the lesson. Yeah. Tak nak tunjuk lah. Okay. Now moving on to learning activities. What are they? Just now I talk about learning strategy. Strategy is big. Strategy, kalau we look at the structure of a pedagogy, strategy is big. Under one strategy, you can plan for the learning activities. Yeah, usually in the classroom, we don't apply many strategy. We don't apply many strategy, at least one or two strategy. Yeah, but we can apply many activities. Right? So learning activities are tasks or assignments that students do to practice and solidify the intended learning. So these are examples of learning activities: writing a summary, playing a matching game, making a diorama, listening to a lecture, debating a topic with another student, solving world problems. These are example. Actually, there are so many activities. Ya, banyak activity. Ini example, common one lah saya tunjuk. So what is the purpose of creating a good learning activities? Yeah, to enable students to engage with and develop their skills, knowledge and understanding. Yeah, to build on prior knowledge and previous activities, to keep students progressing through content objective of increasing rigor, and to motivate learners to participate more actively in the learning. So that's what we do in learning activities. We want the students to engage more in our classroom. With that particular strategy, we have a lot of activities. For example, the 21st century learning activities is such as one stay, three stray, three stray, one stay. Actually, there are so many 21st century learning activities. The Think Pair Share is also one example of learning activities. Ada banyak lagi. Apa lagi ya? Tiba-tiba lupa. Memang banyak. There are a lot of activities that you can do. Yeah, I think many of you have done many learning activities as well. Okay. So why is lesson planning is so important? We come up dan nak habis ni. So why is lesson planning is so important? In pedagogy, basic principle of pedagogy is for you to do a lesson plan, for you to implement the strategy and the activities that you have planned, and for you to do assessment. That's the basic principle of pedagogy. So why is lesson planning is so important? Yeah. So by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. So this is based on Benjamin Franklin. I think this quote is so famous. Yeah. It allows us to evaluate our own knowledge with regards to the contents to be taught and make us more confident teacher. So that's why the first things I gave you a scenario when the students come, when the teacher come into the classroom early in the morning, do not have any plan, do not remember what they have taught in the previous week, and suddenly just promptly tell the student to do this, and the student say, we never even learned this before, teacher. Malunya rasa. Oh no, I'm not a good teacher. If that happened to me, sebulan tak makan kot. Seminggu confirm tak makan lah. Bila saya nak masuk kelas tu saya rasa malu. So that's why it's important for us as a teacher or a lecturer or instructor, important for us to do a lesson planning, ya. You become more confident teacher. Sebab kita dah plan, bila kita plan, kita dah tahu apa kita nak buat. When you enter the class, especially the young lecturer here, mesti ada young lecturer, even though I'm a young lecturer in USM, but I have 19 years of teaching experience, so saya tahu macam mana nak control class. For those who have not teach before, this is the first time you are a contract lecturer, first time mengajar, this is the way of making you a confident teacher. You need to plan your lessons, yeah? Makes the perfect time management tool and provide organizations and a framework to the day, the week, the unit. Kadang-kadang kita buat plan untuk the whole 14 weeks. That's not enough. You have to plan for every lesson. Well, at least if you don't have a template, apa saya buat kadang-kadang saya tak ada template pun, I jot down. I have my own diary today, date sekian, what I need to do. What are my lesson A, plan A, plan B, plan C? Ada semua. But don't worry, it will come throughout your experience, yeah? Throughout the experience, okay? So produce more unified lesson and doesn't leave the teacher having to think on their feet. What am I going to do next? Next apa? Today berpeluh-peluh dah. Apa nak buat ni? Next apa? So when you have plan, okay, next I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Your lessons, your teaching and learning process in the classroom will go smoothly, yeah? Ensure that students will be exposed to the necessary knowledge and skill they need to reach mastery of the objective. Because we have in backward design, we have designed the objective, we have designed the assessments, we have created appropriate strategy and activities to go align with the assessment of the objective. So you don't need to worry. So inshallah, by the end of the lesson, I'm sure your student will get the knowledge and the skill that you intended for your students to get, yeah, by the end of the lessons. So give you the ability to build on previous teaching so that the student can make connection to prior knowledge. Yeah, bila kita mengajar, beside at the beginning, we tell them the contents, what are the learning objective, you should recall what they have learned before. Oh, dah belajar ni, so now this is what we're going to learn. Yeah, usually that is at the beginning of the lessons lah. Kita tanya student for them to recall what they have learned in the previous teaching, yeah, in the previous lessons. Okay, so instructional strategies are flexible and dynamic. Your instruction strategies must be flexible and dynamic. Do not static, yeah, no stagnant, and chosen only once a year. Use in combination with others during a lesson cycle. Yeah, so kita bila choosing a strategy, you must have a variety of strategy, variety of activity, and in your instruction strategy, if you have that content, you can link it with another. You can do deep learning and also deep learning lah, bagi dia bercambah lagi. You can do that, yeah, in your instructional strategy, yeah. So choosing an instructional strategy. Okay, you must consider 5 elements: the content, the students, yourself, times, and resources. This is what you should consider. What are the contents that I'm going to teach today? Yeah. What are the background of my students? Are they auditory learners? Are they visual learners? Kinesthetic learners? You have to think about that. Yeah. Think about yourself as well. Are you capable of doing this kind of strategy? Oh, I don't think I'm capable because I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough teaching aids. Okay? And then think about the time. Time constraint, ada ke tak? And all the resources lah. So this is the detailed explanation of the things that you need to consider when you choose your teaching strategy. Yeah, first is the content. Look at the subject matter, look at the learning objective, and look at the assessments. Content is what you are teaching. So you are the teachers, you are the coaches, you are the expert, you know what you want to teach. Yeah. So it might make sure the content is aligned with the learning objective and the assessments that you have decided before. Yeah. And then consider the students. Okay, like I said, look at the learning style. Auditory, visual, kinesthetic, you must know. That's why it's good to have a diagnostic assessment before you start the class, to know the background, the diversity of your students' background. Yeah. Look at the age and the development. How old is your students? How about their development? Even though they are university students, sometimes their critical thinking, their cognitive level are not the same. Definitely they are not the same because their background are different. So that's why you have to really tengok Usha, tengok you know. Oh, ini background dia macam mana. Even though kita tahu yang masuk, all of the students who are entering the university students are selected students. But sometimes when they are in the university, it's different. Dulu pandai boleh jadi tak pandai. Berlaku. This is what happened. Yeah, this is what happened. That's why you need to really carefully look at the angle of your students' development. Yeah, look at the background knowledge and also their experience. Students coming from low incomes and high income, sometimes the experience are not the same. So don't teach tentang di bandar. You imagine student yang luar bandar, they cannot imagine because they don't have that kind of experience. So balance. You must be balanced, yeah, in terms of the knowledge and the experience of your students. Okay. And then look at academic levels, yeah, even though they are smart students entering the university, but pun ada yang memang dean list, ada yang biasa-biasa, ada yang sikit lagi nak P1. So look at this angle as well. And look at the special needs. Adakah behavior of the students different? Yeah. Nak buat cooperative learning, tengoklah dia punya special needs tu ada tak? You need to know that. Yeah. So it's very important for you to look at your students before you decide to choose the strategy and the activities of your lessons. Right. Review the backward planning process. Okay, recall from section 1 of this course that backward design is a process used in lesson planning. I'm talking about lesson planning where the focus is on the end result and work is way back. That's why we call it backward design, because it begins with writing an effective learning objective, yeah, based on the curriculum standard. And then you decide to choose appropriate assessment that will indicate your student level of content mastery. And finally, you choose instructional strategies and activities that clearly align with the objective and plan assessment. So maybe in the future, when you want to enter a classroom or a unit of lesson, when you want to write your plan, start with the objective. Yeah, objective tadi ada 3, behavior, condition and criterion. Write it properly and match it with the assessment. What will be the appropriate assessment for each of the objective? And then for that, both of the objective and the assessment, what kind of learning activities and strategies that I want to do with my student by taking into account the criteria to choose learning activities and strategies, such as the students itself, the times that I explained just now. Yeah. So that's all from me regarding backward design using understanding by design. Yeah, understanding by design with the concept of backward design. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Dr. Ija, rasanya ada lagi a few question yang yang Dr. belum address dekat dalam chat. Boleh
Boleh tengok balik.
boleh sembah dulu.
Alright. Books tadi dah jawab.
Can we have a copy, Doctor, of your slide?
Copy of the slide, yes. I can give it to the CDAE and the Puan Wani will put it in the YouTube. Boleh. Or you can just email me, ask for the slide, and I'm willing to give you the slide, no problem. Actually, this is a very simple one because I also prepared for the face-to-face punya. Okay.
Thank
Okay. From Dr. Hafizi Rosli, salam Dr. Aziza, for the formative assessment to determine if they are ready to move forward, does it have to be evaluated on every single student, or just few students we ask in class would be sufficient? All right. For the formative assessment, like I said, the intentions of formative assessment is that to get the feedbacks of the student during the lessons. And if you are a documentized kind of person, you would want to document all the feedback of your students, you can have a template. Okay, person A apa feedback dia, person B. If you're not yang jenis macam tu, not necessarily have to be. By doing formative assessments, looking at the feedback maybe from half perhaps of the classroom, you can make generalization already. If half of the classroom could not answer the questions that you gave, could not give a good feedback to you, then you know the rest will have the same problem as well. Well, maybe not all of it, but most of them will also have a same problem as well. So back to the question by Dr. Hafizi, it is not necessarily for you to get the assessment or to do the assessment to each and every one of your student in the classroom. No, it will waste your time. So at least try to get assessment or feedback from, well, half pun banyak sebenarnya. 3 or 4, if most of them can answer, meaning that most probably all of them are having a good understanding. But let's say out of 5, 3 or 4 could not answer, you are in trouble. Meaning that most of your students do not understand. So meaning you can start asking again. So kalau dia tak faham, meaning that you have to explain again lah. Boleh menjawab ke Dr. Hafizi? Alright. Apa lagi soalan? Ada lagi?
Rasa dah okey dah.
Habis dah okay. So no more questions. So I'm looking forward for the hands-on workshop. InsyaAllah, I will plan with CDAE. We will have a one-day workshop where I will, banyak saya nak share ni, alignment chart. Tapi memang 2 jam tak sempat. Ini pun dah terlebih type of assessment, quick reference guide. I can share all of you. This is what I gained from the workshop yang saya pergi ya. Ini pun CDAE yang bagi saya pergi workshop. So this is a good opportunity for me to share with all of the lecturers from USM. So that understanding by design can be used because we focus on our students. Students to learn better, understand better, and able to use the knowledge and skill that they have learned in the classroom for the daily life, or for other activity as well. That is what we hope. Itu yang kita nak from our students in the university. Belajar, tahu knowledge, tahu dia punya skill, but most importantly, dia understand, really understand. They have the big ideas of what we have taught them in the classroom. So that dia boleh apply after this dekat dia punya job. That is what we do. That is what we do as a lecturer in the university. That's all what itu je yang saya harapkan lah. That's why saya buat workshop ni. So thank you so much for those who joined the workshop. InsyaAllah ada rezeki kita jumpa lagi. Ni tengok banyak slide saya nak tunjuk. Tak sempat. Okay. So ada rezeki kita jumpa lagi. Thank you so much everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Kembali kepada Puan Wani lah.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so much Dr. Ija for your sharing today. We shall see you again in the next workshop insyaAllah. To all participants, kindly verify your attendance by clicking the link given in the chat box. And please don't forget to complete the e-survey for the CPD points. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ija.
Thank you, Ani. Thank you, everybody. Have a good lunch.
I will end the session now. Thank you.